At the start of this program, I think I told you that probably the most unique or significant part of this whole session is what I'm about to talk about now, which is what we call the 4 standards. I want you to think about something. As a leader of people, you are responsible for guiding, supporting the way other people think and behave. That's pretty big. Well, in any organization, there are going to be certain rules, there are going to be certain bylaws, certain policies and procedures that you have to help people live by. But beyond that, what we know to be true is that you as a leader, you have certain concepts that you want people to follow. And what we want to do next is help you really think through what those things are. Because by clearly identifying your standards, it will significantly impact your ability to help people get where they need to go as leaders. Now, here's something I want you to think about. Your 4 standards are very similar to maybe what your core values are, right? That line in the sand in terms of here's what drives the way I do what I do. Or you might think about your 4 standards as some of your beliefs about how people ought to conduct themselves in a professional setting, in an organization like a Habitat for Humanity or an organization like a Nissan. The other thing I want you to think about is maybe the word preferences, right? When you think about your standards, you're really thinking about how you sort of prefer to focus your time, your talent, and your attention as a leader. Now, granted, you probably have as many as 100 standards, but 4 seems like the number that people can gather, they can understand, they can comprehend, and they can really work with. Now, in some organizations, you're going to find that some organizations already have core competencies that they want everybody to learn. And again, this does not take the place of the core competencies in your organization because, again, those are the competencies your entire organization wants people to be good at. This is, once again, your personal philosophy. So, again, these standards follow you wherever you go in your career, right? The other thought is this, is your standards tend to dictate how you evaluate people. And this is something that I found to be sort of interesting throughout my career is when I ask leaders the question, if they have 4 clear standards, most of them have never taken the time to do it. Secondly, if they have identified their 4 standards, in many instances, they have never taken the time to share those standards with their team. And you know what happens? Every day of the week, they wind up judging people against those 4 standards. What do you mean, Derek? What I mean is this. Let's say one of your standards is timeliness. You are a big stickler on timeliness. And let's say one of the people on your team gets to work every day at 8:10, 8:17, 8:23. Well, you get to work every day at 7:55. Well, that might be eating you up because, again, it's a personal standard. Now, once again, there's no core competency. There's nothing in the rule book that said the person had to be there at 8. But for you, work starts at 8. My point is, what are you doing to ensure that the person, the people who work with you, clearly understand those standards? So what we want you to be able to do is this. Number one is once you've taken some time to really identify your standards, one is, how do you define your standards? Let's say one of your standards is integrity. That's a common thing. That's something everybody understands, right? Not necessarily. What we know to be true in doing this session for years and years is that your definition of integrity might be different than their definition of integrity. So number one is it's very important that you define your standards. Number two, then, that you explain your standards. What do you mean by integrity? Where does that come from? What experiences help you come to that conclusion? Number three, it's very important to ensure that they understand. And gang, everybody who's taken this session, I'm sure you know this to be true. I call it the dreaded head nod. You know how you're explaining something to somebody and you get somebody who's sort of doing the head nod, and then they add the That is usually a sign that means I have no idea what you're talking about, but I'm going to agree to move this conversation along, right? Well, now, what we want is I want you to interact with that person in such a way that when they talk back, when they give you their take on what you said, you can walk away, rest assured that they fully understand what your standards are. Now, why do you do this? Number one, it helps you increase clarity. And every leader strives for clarity. Number two, it helps you increase relevance. They begin to better understand why your standards matter for their success, the team's success, the organization's success. Number three, I think it increases your ability, once again, to connect with the people you work with. Now they know where you stand. Now they know what to expect. Now they know what to look for. Now they can attach meaning to many of the things you do, many of the things you focus on, because they know your standards. And then last but not least, what we've seen is that having these conversations, explaining and ensuring that they understand, helps increase the trust factor between you and the people you serve. Last but not least, you've got to remember you're the leader. You're the person who's been put in charge. You're the person who's ultimately responsible for the collective performance of your group. That means you set the bar, and that's why we think these 4 standards are so important. So we want you to take some time now, carve that time out, and really walk through and work through those 4 standards. And when we come back, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some of my standards, and we're going to dive in even deeper.